Hello, everybody. It's the Painting Dad here, and we are back with another episode of Thousand Suns in 3rd Edition. Today is part 9. We are talking about the armor of the Legion. So let's just go through a basic overview here of Astartes' armor. So the rules can be found in Liber, that should be Hereticus, I can't spell, Liber Astartes, the Legacy PDF, and also one of the Journal Tacticas has a tank in there for us to talk about today. Vehicles generally use, well, they all use armor values instead of toughness, so they are generally a lot tougher than your infantry or units like dreadnoughts. So they can generally take a lot more punishment. They typically have much bigger guns than our infantry carry, which is very important. They do not interact with objectives, so you cannot hold or contest objectives with vehicles. So they are basically a nice extra in the game. They can be a very, very nice extra, but not interacting with objectives means that you do not win with vehicles alone. That's something important to keep in mind when you are selecting vehicles here. They do not benefit from Legion rules, and this is across all legions. There are no vehicles that benefit from the Legion rules. So you can't get +1 willpower on your Kratos. There's no +2 movement from White Scar's rules. There's no Legion rules that benefit vehicles. They're fairly limited with their reactions, whether it's a return fire reaction, not giving them all of their weapons to shoot, or not being able to back away, not able to do movement reactions. So there's some different ways that they're limited in their usage of reactions. So that's something else to keep in mind. And just as a general thing, armor is very good this edition. Tanks in general, solid. Absolutely solid this edition. But they do not directly win games. So something to keep in mind is that they are very good. They're a great addition. I bring tanks in all of my games, but they are not directly winning games for you. So let's talk about the Armored Support Detachment, because this is where our focus is going to be today. The Armored Support Detachment is an auxiliary detachment, which means that if you take any command model, this is one of the detachments that you may select that to be associated with that command model. So don't worry if you're struggling with list building. We're going to talk about that later at a later point, probably pretty soon. But it is an auxiliary detachment. It means you can take lots of them. It's a very generous detachment compared to just about every other detachment in the list, I guess, of detachments. So you actually get 4 armor slots in this. It's very spammable, and you're able to take lots of armor in a list. My general usage has just been one armor detachment, one armored support detachment in a 3K list and a 3,000 point army. Mainly because I use it to kind of fill out points. So you'll see there's lots of entries, lots of options in this detachment. So you could definitely spend a lot of points or very few points on one of these detachments. But I like to use it as like a support role. It's armored support, right? I don't use armor as my focus for my list. So one of these is normally great in a 3,000 point list. But there is viability in taking a lot of cheap tanks, like your Predators or Vindicators or those kinds of tanks, and really like spamming them, taking multiple detachments. I think that's awesome. If I had the actual models to do that, I would be doing that. I'd be trying it out a lot. But something to keep in mind is deployment space might become an issue when you're bringing a lot of armor. They take up a lot of space in the board, and as you can see from that picture, like just tanks just covering the board there. You might end up with with a slight issue with deployment. It's not the end of the world. I'm sure you can figure out a place to put your tank. Just might not be optimal, but you can spam it. I prefer just one in a normal 3K list. So the role that armor plays in a Thousand Suns army. This is important because when we build a list, we want to think about how we're making all these pieces of the puzzle fit, right? What are we doing? What is each piece in our army? What's each unit going to be doing in a game? Or at least what do we want it to do? So thinking about the role that our armor plays is going to be really important at the list building stage. Thousand Suns in general, and we've talked about this a lot through our videos. Thousand Suns in general, they're very good at an anti-infantry or like anti-monsters like dreadnoughts and automaton and stuff like that. Very good in that role. With the Corvidae power, just throwing out rending, breaching, high damage, the good unique plasma, the interaction with Asphyx bolters, with the Inductii, Keenatai blades, the unique melee weapons, all these things work toward Thousand Suns being good at anti-infantry. Not to mention a lot of the Arcana powers and Psychic disciplines are specifically made to interact with enemy infantry and non-vehicle units. So we as a Legion kind of have this area of the game set. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't look at tanks that have anti-infantry as like a role, as something that's like not viable. You can still consider those things. Just keep in mind that it's very easy for the Thousand Suns Legion to field units that deal with these enemies. You know, the dreadnoughts and your infantry and, you know, Terminators and all those units are pretty easy to deal with. One thing where our infantry and our Legion units lack is in the anti-tank firepower. So as I go through these lists of tanks and talk about roles, I'm really going to focus on anti-tank firepower, because I think that is definitely an important gap to cover. And as we'll see, the best anti-tank I feel is another tank. There is one unit I think that could be contesting other tanks for an anti-tank role, and that's the Rapier laser destroyers. They're incredible. I love the Rapier laser destroyers, but in general, it's going to be tanks that you want to use to destroy other tanks. They're going to be really good in that job. With the armor in our Legion, something you have to keep in mind is there's very little interaction with the Arcanas and Psychic disciplines, and we will talk about one specific power that works on vehicles. But in general, they don't really interact. You have some weapons, some psychic weapons that are able to, I guess, damage tanks. There's not much out there that'll just outright kill a Rhino, though. And if you're not killing a Rhino in one shot, like, the anti-tank is not generally something I look at. But, you know, it's nice extra, some of the powers, but in general, it's not interacting with armor. I really like tanks to use as distraction carnifexes. And that term, if you're not familiar with that term, a distraction carnifex is basically a big, scary target on the battlefield that could potentially do a lot of damage to the enemy, so they have to focus on it. It doesn't always work that way, but it's in general, it's like old school 40k when a carnifex was the biggest monster on the battlefield. You could throw a cheap carnifex out and the enemy had to deal with it. If they didn't, it would wreck them, but if they did, it would take so much firepower the rest of the army could do stuff. So that's a distraction carnifex, guys. But we can use vehicles as a distraction, a way to soak up firepower or your opponent's attention while your infantry goes in and actually wins the game for you. Vehicles are very good at blocking movement and line of sight, and anyone who has read or watched videos or played against or with tarantulas and spamming tarantulas, which are vehicles, they will probably understand the strategy. You cannot look past vehicles and you cannot move past vehicles unless you're flying or anti-grav. But vehicles are very good at, you know, going into a choke point and just sitting there and just forcing the enemy to either put all the effort into destroying it. It's that distraction carnifex, right? All the effort into destroying it, or finding a way to go around or go, you know, through something else they don't want to. So use that movement on vehicles, especially your kind of low firepower vehicles. Maybe Predators are very cheap, and we'll talk about those. Sicarans are large, they have high movement, they work for that. The Kratos is an incredible tank anyway, that's very good at this, but you can use them to just block off parts of the board. It's great. You can use vehicles in an anti-infantry role, and I think that's perfectly fine. And it's great if you just need a big gun, a cheap gun. Tanks generally are cheaper for the firepower that you get on them than a lot of the infantry squads that you can purchase. So, or add into your army. I think monetarily and like in-game points. So using vehicles as an anti-infantry role is fine. It's totally fine. But again, Thousand Sun's really good at the anti-infantry role anyway. Quick breakdowns. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go through each of the tanks in the Armored Support Detachment. There are 10 of them. I'm gonna give a quick overview of each tank. This is nothing in depth. We can revisit some of these in depth later, but I want to keep this video to a reasonable length. So we're just going to go through each of the tanks and maybe some quick thoughts about them. So I'm definitely not going to cover everything that a potential tank could do. I'm not going to cover like specific weapon stats or whatever. These are just some general opinions that I have that I've formed reading the rules or playing with these tanks. There's a lot. All right, so first one, we have the Arqueter Bombard. Arqueter Bombard is it's an artillery essentially. It's like a backwards Sicaran. It's a crazy cool looking tank, not in plastic yet, still in resin. It has somewhat versatile main guns. It doesn't have anything that fits an anti-tank role, so that's important to keep in mind. Or at least nothing that fits an armor value 14 destroying role, which I think we'll find might be fairly important as we go into 3rd edition and we play more. Those armor value 14, those heavy tanks are very tough to deal with. So having dedicated weapons to hit the armor value 14 is going to be very important. And the Arqueter doesn't really have anything to deal with it. Now, you can give it Phosphex on it's the Morbus Bombard gun on it. Phosphex is incredible. It puts out Panic 3 on a unit. It's AP 3. It's a large blast. It's a really cool weapon. You do have to take a Siege Breaker console in your army before you can choose Phosphex for the Arqueter Bombard. So you're putting more points into this vehicle. It is very strong at what it does at an anti-infantry role, but you are putting a lot of points into it. It does have barrage on most of its weapons, which is great. It means you can hit targets out of line of sight, but in general its weapons have pretty poor range. Pretty close range tank. You're going to be moving it up the field maybe the first turn, maybe not the first turn, but you'll be limited in your targets, and your opponent can plan around it pretty easy. And again, it's great as an anti-infantry / status applying piece. So it does great in that role. It's not great for anti-tank. All right, next up, the Hyperios Missile Tank. This is found in Journal Tactica, the Drop Site Massacre at Istvan Part 1. It was the first Journal Tactica to come out. That is where you'll find the rules for the Hyperios Missile Tank. It is just a kit bash. The actual model is completely plastic. It's a kit bash of a Scorpius and a Tarantula, specifically the Missile Tarantula with the Hyperios missile launcher. It's the box with the 5 rockets in it on each side. So it's a kit bash model. It's in the Journal Tactica. You can also find it on your apps and everything. But that's where this tank is. It is a light armored anti-aircraft vehicle. So it has missiles that's specifically made to shoot down aircraft, but can also damage lighter armored vehicles. It's pretty mediocre. 2 shots, strength 7, 2 damage. It's not putting out a lot of damage against tanks. It is AP 3, so it can ignore power armor saves. But in general, it's not amazing. It's pretty mediocre. I have used the weapons here. I had them on tarantulas, but I've used them and they struggled to kill anything. I don't think I had 2 of them. They didn't kill anything over the course of a 4-turn game. Yeah, it's very low chance for a vehicle or aircraft kill. At best, you can damage a rhino. Now, aircraft tend to have fewer hull points, so light aircraft like a Xiphon, I think you do have a chance of outright killing a Xiphon, or something like a Solar Ox transport or an Arvis. But even that means you need to roll really hot to do that. So it's a very, very mediocre tank. It looks great, very mediocre. Part 2, Kratos Assault Tank. So I did not put a Kratos picture on this slide because I was not thinking, apparently. Kratos, 280 points base, very cheap for its role. It sounds very expensive, but man, this tank is a monster. Very, very cheap for what it does. It has the stable keyword. That means not only do you count as stationary when you're shooting, so all the heavy weapons and that you can put on this, they always get their heavy benefit. You can also split fire all of your weapons, or any amount of your weapons, and you do not have to snap fire anything. So stable is a fantastic keyword and makes this thing an absolute monster. It has amazing anti-tank potential. This is one of the better anti-tank vehicles. You can put up to 4 las cannons on it and still give it I think it has 2 really solid anti-tank weapons. The Melta blast gun is fantastic, and being stable, you can still move up. You still get the heavy rules on everything. You can get into Melta range release. I believe its Melta range is 24 inches, which is a turn 1 range when you move and use it. So incredible anti-tank potential on this. You can split fire, which is great, but you can put it into an anti-infantry role. At the anti-infantry role, I think it gets a little pricey for what it does, but it's very tough. It's 14 armor all around. I believe it's 10 or 12 hull points. It's very hard to one-shot kill. Yeah, okay, yeah, armor 14. Very hard to deal with. So the Legion Basilisk, this is a legacy PDF unit. So if you want to find this, check it out in the legacy PDF. I will link the Warhammer Community downloads page in the description, and you can look it up there. So it's a light vehicle. It's actually not Chimera chassis, old school like guard tank, right? Has an incredible range, 240 inches. Its barrage and blast 5 inches. It has a pretty decent chance of hitting its target with a blast 5 inches. It is barrage 2, which means it's scattering pretty far if you don't get the direct hit. It's very good in anti-infantry role because it does give statuses and it has breaching 6 up. So there's chances for its hits to ignore armor, and it does apply statuses when it hits its unit. It definitely needs to hide. So it's armor 12, it's I think 4 hull points, very fragile tank. It needs to hide. It has the range to hide wherever you want on the board. So hide it in the corner. Don't let anyone see it or get near it. And it as an anti-tank, it is strength 10 when it stands still to shoot. And it does 2 damage. So, you need to put the last 2 damage on that Land Raider or on a Rhino or just something. This can really do the job in a pinch. So don't discount these completely for their anti-tank role because they're good at plinking extra wounds, especially if you don't have great infantry targets. These work well to just take off a couple damage. Part 3, Legion Medusa, once again a legacy PDF unit, so link will be in the description. It is very similar to the Basilisk, same stats, everything, it's just a different gun. Its weapon is very close range. I believe it's a 36-inch range weapon. It's still barrage, but you have to keep that in mind. It's getting a lot closer to the enemy before it can select its targets, so it's in a lot more danger. It has a better breaching and a better pinning value. So it does more damage to infantry. This is definitely much more of an anti-infantry focused weapon, especially like Terminators or veterans. It does really well into those units. Yeah, and definitely once you got to hide these, right? It's barrage, you want to hide it, but the short range makes it a little more difficult. There's a lot of these short range barrage weapons, and if you have the board to do it, if you can play around it, I think these can do really well for you. But yeah, you don't want these being exposed. They'll die really quick when the enemy gets line of sight on them. The Humble Predator. So the Predator is very cheap. This is a 100 point tank. 100 points gets you the Predator autocannon and 2 heavy bolters. That's solid. That's a really solid weapon for 100 points, and it's an armor value 13 front with 5 hull points. It's a great tank. And yeah, 100 points is a steal for this, honestly. It is extremely versatile. There's 6, 7, 8 weapon options for the turret. It has all the sponson options all the other armor have. You just have to keep in mind this tank gets expensive. And as far as a mainline battle tank, it's relatively fragile. Armor 13 is nothing to discount though. It can be very tough. These are very spammable, by the way. Like, you, at its base cost with the and that base loadout, it's good against most things, right? At 100 points, you can fill out an armored support detachment for 400 points. That to me is wild, and that'll cover all of your anti medium armor, and you have some anti-infantry firepower in there too. It gets, some issues when you want to split fire. You want to focus on targets, but 100 points, 400 points, you can probably keep them under 500 points to give them a decent turret weapon or sponsons. It's fantastic. Great tank. The Predator autocannon is strength 8, so it does have a reasonable chance at damaging things like rhinos and side armor of other vehicles, but those lightly armored vehicles it can do pretty well into. It's definitely not my first choice for anti-tank, even with the Meltagun on it, even with sponson las cannons, the twin link las cannon on the top. Those things, it's still not great for anti-tank. Its big appeal is it's cheap, and it has a lot of kind of unique weapons, like mediocre weapons, but being on such a cheap platform that's pretty durable gives it the appeal. But as far as anti-tank, if you want to take half a dozen of these and give them all anti-tank weapons, probably paying a little too many points for that, but it can work. A great thing about this is again how cheap it is. You have a spare 100 points, you're at 2,900 points, just throw a Predator in the list. It's perfect for that. Instead of, you already have your 4 or 5 tactical squads and you'll have space on the board, like this tank will do perfect for that. So, and since it's so customizable with the different weapons, you can really like fill out those points to the point almost, with just a Predator. Great tank. Scorpius missile tank. I have experience using this one. It is cheap. It's 120 points. It's just an artillery piece. It fires a barrage missile. That's it. Disadvantage is only range 48. So the range, I think, kind of hurts the Scorpius a bit. It can't fire corner to corner on the board, so it's a little limited with its range. It has heavy firepower, so if you stand still, it actually has 2 shots, which is great on its blast. It's only blast 3 inches. You're going to scatter and miss things so often, it's going to get frustrated. I've taken this Scorpius in 3 or 4 games of 3rd edition, and I want to say it's had a shot on... No, this is partially my luck, but it's had a shot on target maybe twice, and it very rarely does damage. I don't think I've ever paid the points for one Scorpius tank, let alone 3 or 4 of them from the games I've taken them. Yeah, in general, it's a cool mini. Mini looks great. I know in 2nd edition it was called the Friend Maker because it was hideously overpowered. It is not anymore. It's very limited in its role. If you take a lot of them, maybe you can find a way to make them work and do some things. It can potentially plink off a couple damage off of lighter vehicles, or it can hit units out of sight. So a rapier battery hiding, with the quad mortars, or another Scorpius tank, or just something kind of hiding out of line of sight. That's what this can do well. 2 hits if you get lucky on a vehicle, it can do some damage. The Sakaran. This is one of my favorite tanks with how it looks. It's not particularly great, but I field these a lot just because I think they look really cool. It's very similar to a Predator, but kind of upgunned. It's a lot faster. It's made for its speed, and it's slightly tougher than a Predator. So it has better side armor or whatever. It has 4 main gun options, and they're pretty versatile. So they all kind of have a different role. Essentially, though, they're all pretty mediocre, in my opinion. It's got the plasma guns are good on it. I have the auto cannons on mine, the accelerator auto cannons, which are, again, very mediocre. They're only strength 7. You would think they would take out light armor pretty easy, but they don't really do a great job at that. They struggle even into Rhino armor 12. The fact that Rhinos went to armor 12 makes them kind of difficult to kill with these strength 7 auto cannons. They are anti-aircraft weapons though, so if your opponent's fielding Xiphons or things coming on the board, they might do okay into that. But in general, their weapons are okay, and you're paying a lot more points than you would a Predator. So for like very little durability and a lot of speed is what you're really paying for, and an extra heavy bolter for free. An important thing for anti-tank roll for these is there's nothing that can damage armor 14 aside from the las cannon sponsons, but you're gonna be targeting anti-aircraft and light vehicles, and as you can probably see, there's a lot of vehicles in this list that can take out light vehicles. So the Sicaran isn't like, it's not necessarily unique in its role. It's a little pricey for what you get. It's almost double the cost. It's 160 to start, which is 60 points more than a Predator, and it's really filling the same role. So, you know, it gets kind of tough to choose this over some of the other tanks for more anti-light vehicle firepower. And our last two tanks, the Sicaran Venator. Now, this is the anti-tank version of the Sicaran. It has a neutron beam laser. An important thing about neutron beam laser, it's 2 shots, strength 10, it's great AP2, it's 2 damage on each of those shots, and it's ordnance damage, so it doubles its damage to 4 with each of these shots. Now, that cannot outright kill something like a Land Raider or a Spartan. It can't outright kill the heavier vehicles that you want to kill with a heavy anti-tank weapon such as this. It's like a centerline mounted weapon. It's a great looking tank. But it's important to mention that its max damage output is 8. It does have las cannon sponsons you can give it, so you can give it up to damage 12. But you're throwing out a lot of dice there, so you gotta get really lucky to kill something. But the beam laser is not going to outright kill something heavy. It does have the shock suppressed rule, which means if you roll a 5 to hit on one of those beam laser attacks, you actually put the suppressed status on an enemy tank, which is really important because it can make those vehicles snap fire. That's what the suppressed status does. So if they don't have tech marines or they're out of position, you can make that big, even I guess like Fellblade or Kratos or something. You can make it snap fire and really reduce its effectiveness. The Vindicator, on the other hand, is cheap and actually has better anti-tank firepower than the Sicaran Venator, in my opinion. The important thing is the 2 weapons that it has. Now, it doesn't have sponsons, which is important to remember. The sponsons of the Venator kind of make up for its lack of damage on its main gun. But the Vindicator has the Demolisher Cannon, which is close range at 24 inches. But if you're standing still, it's a damage 6 and strength 12 weapon. That is fairly likely to get through armor value 14. Now, it won't outright kill something like a Land Raider or Spartan, but will outright kill Leman Russ battle tanks or Predators. Anything lighter than a Land Raider basically will be outright killed by a Demolisher Cannon. And the blast with, you still roll to hit with your blast weapons and stuff, means that it's fairly accurate. Even if you do miss, you have a decent chance of hitting a larger vehicle. So I have used these to kill a Fellblade with Demolisher Cannons on different vehicles, but it's a great weapon. The Magna Laser Destroyer can actually one-shot heavy vehicles. And that's a big difference between the neutron beam laser from the Venator. This Magna Laser Destroyer, it's 2 shots, it's strength 10, it's AP2, it's 3 damage and ordnance damage. So each one of these can do 6 damage. It's unlikely, but it's very doable to one-shot something like a Spartan, especially if your enemy or your opponent is not using a shroud reaction on your Spartan, like the smoke screen, or if they put searchlights on it, or they wanted to return fire. You can outright kill heavy vehicles. 12 damage is a lot. And this Vindicator, I believe, with the Magna Laser Destroyer is 160 points. That's a really good value. They're terrifying. The Magna Laser Destroyer is also a 36-inch range weapon. So these are tanks you want to stand still to benefit from the ordnance, right? 36 inches is a big deal over the 24-inch Demolisher Cannon, and it's my preferred way to equip the Vindicators. So it's a great weapon. In my opinion, it's a way better value than the Sakaran Venator, just for the sense that it's cheaper and it can do more damage. It's a little more swingy when the Venator has has more chances. You're rolling more dice, but it's a great weapon. Yeah, 160 points for the laser. That's great. I put a searchlight on it, so it becomes 165 points, and you just end up with, if the enemy does shroud, then their shrouding save is a 6+, which is almost seems like a waste, but do they waste a it's a great tank. Great tank. It's also very good distraction card effects, because your opponent will be terrified of these, especially if they kill something the first time you play your opponent. They will go after this tank so hard every time you play them. So it works really great. For 160 points, it's a great value. So real quick, let's talk about supporting our armor. As a Thousand Suns player, or anyone with a librarian really, the Divination Psychic Discipline, which is a core psychic discipline, Foresight's Blessing, it does affect vehicles. Now, Foresight Blessing gives your vehicles Precision 5+. That means that when you target a unit with your vehicle, every 5+ to hit, you, as the person firing the weapons, get to pick out or distribute where those hits are allocated. So you can pick out Nuncio Voxes or characters or sergeants or anything like that. You get to pick where those hits are allocated. So it can be useful. I haven't found tons of use for it, but if you have a big, neutron beam laser on a Venator and you want to pick out your enemy's warlord, go for it. That's cool. The thing that's important with Thousand Suns, where this becomes a lot more useful, is the numerologists come with this power. This is one of their 2 psychic powers that they just come standard with. So you have a numerologist who's already going to be very useful in your army, because they have the servo arm and they have battlesmiths, so they can repair these vehicles. But then they're sitting in the back line and they're giving your Kratos or something precision. So in a pinch, you can target out an enemy character or a Primarch or something, nasty like that, and you can just hit them with a Fellblade or what is it, the Falchion, Titan killing laser weapon. You throw a precision on that and tell Perturabo to eat a Titan killer, something like that. Any battlesmith model will be useful, and that's typically your Tech Marines. As a Thousand Suns player, numerologist. So Tech Marines are very cheap and they're easy access to psychic arcanas, to prospering arcanas, but the numerologist, in my opinion, is easier to field. So they don't take up the support slot. You're not dedicating an entire auxiliary detachment to them. You're already wanting to field your Prospering Convocation detachment. It's a very, very good detachment. And the numerologists are elite options, which means they fit right into that detachment. So taking a numerologist, in my opinion, is always a good bet if you're fielding, an armored support detachment, you're fielding some big armor, or even, dreadnoughts or something. Numerologists are great for this. But again, Tech Marines in a pinch, I think they're 45 points, 35 points. They're super cheap, and they will keep your vehicles alive. Great stuff. So in conclusion, armor doesn't benefit from Legion rules or most psychic disciplines. The Armored Support Detachment does have a lot of room to field a lot of tanks, though, so something to keep in mind, you probably only need one. Armor does not interact with objectives. Vehicles don't interact with objectives. But they are durable and they bring a lot of firepower, so we can it's a lot of firepower for the points that you spend on them specifically. For 1,000 Suns players, the anti-tank role is most useful, because we're really good at destroying armor anyway. Otherwise, if you need a big gun, you can destroy targets with big guns. Large blast, 5-inch blast, artillery, big Volkite weapons, whatever kind of crazy things you can come up with. Big guns are good. And try to support your armor, especially if you're fielding a lot of it. Support it with Tech Marines, or even better, numerologists. Numerologists are also a great modeling opportunity for like the hobby aspect, and yeah, just a lot of fun to field. All right, bonus army photos here. So I have a couple more photos of some tanks I wanted to show that I didn't put in earlier in the show. So there's a Sakaran, just a nice shot of my painted Sakaran as soon as I got painted. That's one of my 2 Sakarans. This is my Land Raider, and this is actually the recon version. However, this Land Raider is magnetized, so I magnetized the front end of this Land Raider so it can be just a carrier or the Explorer variant. It was horrible to magnetize, but now that I know how to do it, I'll probably never magnetize another one, but I did magnetize this one. It was pretty great. It's a Solar Auxilia Leman Russ. I love my my Aspire Guard, so that's just one of the Leman Russes I painted. I wanted to show off because I don't show a lot of them on this video series. And last but not least, this was a list I fielded for an event I think I went to, and I took some tanks. So just some different tanks. I believe that was in 2nd edition. So, but just a good armored focused army that I took. Thank you guys for hanging out with me and watching. Hopefully this wasn't too horrible to listen to. If you have suggestions or advice or questions or other, I guess, contributions you want to make, please put a comment down below the video. I know it helps the channel, and I love chatting with you guys anyway. I stream 5 days a week, and I'm normally just painting minis, whether it's for a commission or my own stuff. So please come and chat. I love talking about Thousand Suns. You can get me on rants about this stuff really easily. And if you have not considered it, I would ask that you would consider joining the Patreon. You get the videos a little early. You get the videos a day early. If you're a member of the Patreon, you get entered into giveaways. We do all kinds of stuff. So we do weekly hangouts with the Patreon crowd. So yeah, I'd encourage you, check that out if you feel like it's worth your time or worth your money. I would greatly appreciate that. But otherwise, you guys have a wonderful week. And next week, we should be talking about how to make an army list, Thousand Suns edition. All right, so we're gonna go over a basic view of how we're making army lists, but then I want to talk about this with a focus on our legion. Okay, so like kind of how I do it and the things I look for with my army, and this wonderful legion that we have. But I will see you guys next time, and you guys have a wonderful day. Bye, everybody.